All right. Welcome to the next episode of Brain Hope Reality. It's PTSI, not PTSD. We'll talk about it. Today is an exciting day for two reasons. One, Cinnamon Reiheld is here. Hopefully, I pronounce it closer this time.
Perfect.
All right.
Flawless.
Yeehaw. And so I was on her podcast before and decided to bring her to my podcast so we can torture each other back and forth. I think it's kind of works that way.
It's working out well. Yes.
Yeah, why not? The other part is this is today I had delivery of my latest book, The Gut Shot. Today is the day it has actually arrived. Those babies, there are 100 of them, they're going with me to Mexico for a TEDx. It's going to be January 15th, which I think is going to be pretty amazing. We are talking about stellar ganglion block, PTSD, as well as the focus there is the name change, the requirement of the name change. So that's where we're at. And one thing that Cinnamon and I share is love for first responders. I used to be a trauma surgeon in comedy, so I've dealt with a lot of first responders and the issues that are so surrounding that. And currently, Maggie, no noise. That's noise. No noise. Please.
He's like, but I really,
But
really
I
want to
just a
get into
little
these
bit more.
books.
No problem. This is not the books. It's dog chews. We'll cut that out. Anyway, so the first responders with PTSD and secondary PTSD that first responders spouses get, I'm a big believer in helping. And we've had an amazing opportunity to do it in the police department, fire department in the Chicago area. We've had some pretty amazing results. So I thought we could talk about first responders, what goes on in the families, and I think you know a lot about that. I'd be curious to see from your perspective. Mine is more medical perspective, not as much as lived perspective. I certainly see those guys, but I'm not as entrenched with them as you are. Anyway, with that, maybe you can tell us your background. Why do you have any interest in first responders at all? Who cares?
Okay. Who cares? It it's one
I'm
of
not going to put
those
you on the spot.
random,
Breath. You can just give us a full answer.
it's one of those random things. And I feel like when I hear other clinicians or other mental health advocates tell their story, um, there's usually this connection. Um, and mine is I used to be the one who tried to outrun the sirens. I didn't want to pull over for a fire truck, right? Like I was absolutely not the person that you would have thought would end up doing this job. But there was a line of duty death in the community that I worked in, and I was volunteered to go support that fire department through an arson trial and anniversaries and provide individual support, individual clinical services, as well as some just basic training around mental health and uh, PTSD and problematic traumatic exposure. And after 8 months of being able to do this work, I realized that one, first responders were way more jacked up than this one line of duty death. And two, I had been given this opportunity that most clinicians don't ever get, where I was able to just go stay at a firehouse for 8 months and not worry about billing and just learn the culture, get to know the people, ingratiate myself into the point that they trusted me and that they were willing to come to me. And like, we don't get to do that. Like, that's such a rare opportunity. So I came home on a Thursday and told my husband I wanted to quit my job and open a private practice for first responders. And he said, "Well, can you wait and not put your resignation letter in until Monday?" And like, just think about it for a minute.
Take a
And
breath.
so I did. Right? I submitted my resignation letter And within 60 days, I had brick and mortar and was up and running a private practice serving exclusively first responders and their adult family members. And I've not looked back. I've never questioned that decision. In fact, I've just fallen deeper in love with my work. And I feel not only did I get the privilege of having the exposure to the culture that I did, but I also had the privilege of being picked, right? When people say, "How did you pick first responders?" I'm like, "Oh, you don't pick them. They pick you if you're
That's
lucky."
that's true. They're very
And
discerning. That is, they're very discerning.
yeah, so to me, it was just a matter of like opportunity and kismet that it has worked out for me to be able to provide this service to this awesome community. And I feel like I have the best job in the world. I know they kind of argue about which group of them that do, but I listen to their stories. I still am convinced that it's me that has the better side of the
Well,
coin.
maybe it's good for both sides. How's that sound?
Yes.
So what
Everybody's doing what they're good at because I couldn't
exactly?
put out a fire.
So do you spend a lot of time working with the family structure besides just whoever so there's a first responder, and like in the military they say, it's like the people go to war, the whole family goes to war. It's not just a soldier
Right.
or airman. Everybody goes to war. Do you find the same thing, and how do you treat that if you do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that there is a certain kind of person that successfully can be the spouse of a first responder. It it's a lot of oftentimes single parenting. It's a lot of that what you said on my podcast that I've repeated because I think it was so awesome that PTSI can come home like an STD and spread, right? Where
Something
it
very
gets to, yeah, it gets to the point where we don't know which version of our loved one is coming home. Um, we don't know, you know, how to communicate all the time what we're seeing and that things are uh, sliding towards really not good. Like, how do I work up the courage to say something and say, this is what I'm noticing, and it doesn't start a fight? Um, and there's there used to be this big community around like auxiliaries for spouses and the loved ones of first responders that we've just seen that deteriorate. So as much as first responders get to go to boot camp or the academy or training or whatnot, we forget about the families at home that probably need their own boot camp and just simply don't get it. And so without the informal support networks as well as the formal support networks, you've got a lot of families figuring out how to do it on their own. And that is a lot of trial and error rather than if we had those support networks in place.
I think you're 100% right. And then, don't forget the kids. It's not just significant others.
Oh,
So
yeah.
my experience, you may recall, my father had PTSD or PTSI from World War II. He gave it to
Yes.
my mother, and then they both gave it to me. Thank you so much for that gift.
Right.
Um, so eventually, it ended up with my mother taking her life. So that's why I'm really interested in first responders, military
Yeah.
personnel, victimized people. It doesn't matter. But I think people don't give enough credit and support enough the support personnel that they have at home. And those guys are super important because if they're miserable, they're not going to be very good first responders, right? They,
I
they
think
need the help of the family, which is normal.
there's a lot of focus on when it comes to kids, the being honest but not creating or instilling a fear that that parent might not come home because of the job, or that something could happen to harm their parent. That has maybe been the focus, like what parents maybe think. And what I've noticed is, oh, sometimes it's about when you do come home, right? It's not whether or not you come home, it's the bigger exposure, the more problems is when you do come home and you don't have that mindfulness of shifting gears because we've created this false sense of ability to separate work from home, like as if we're able to mentally shed one uniform and put on another. And so I like to spend more time talking about how to parent from a place of of reassurance. So it's we don't end up with kids going, which parent, which version of my dad or which version of my mom is coming
Exactly.
home
Well,
versus whether or not they're coming home at all.
what's your technique? I am curious because I don't do any of that part. All I can do is do a needle injection and calm everybody down. But the part that's really, I think, harder is day in, day out. How do you deal with everyday stress? How do you deal with all of that? What's your technique?
So my area of expertise is adverse childhood experiences.
Mhm.
Um,
So you know a
and
lot about ACEs score, right? Just a bit.
oh yeah, I'm a seven. I'm a
You're
seven.
7. Oh, I'm probably
And
5, so you're ahead. Not something I want to
yeah,
hear. Let me assure you.
yeah. Well, and what I learned through the Save a Warrior program is my score is a seven. I am not my score. But
Good.
part of the reason I'm even interested in this is because I knew my score was a seven.
So
I
if you
wanted
don't mind
to,
interrupting you, a lot of people who are listening don't really know what we're talking about. ACEs scores.
yes,
Maybe you could talk about
I could,
adverse
let's
childhood
back up.
experience, and maybe you can just give a like a 1 minute speech. You're
Absolutely.
better than me.
So in 1995 to 1997, Kaiser Permanente, as an HMO, wanted to figure out what was going on with their insured individuals and where there was, if there was, a place where they could intervene to maybe predict a little bit better about what was causing certain groups of people that didn't seem there was no rhyme or reason to their increased social or health physical health
Primarily,
issues.
if I may interrupt, primarily it was
Please.
who is going to lose weight.
Really?
Yeah, because if your score was above 5, you ain't get losing weight. I think that's what they were able to predict based on
That's
that
what.
really high certainty. That's how I remember it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's good. Actually, it's funny that you did that because I was like, I had Dr. Lipov on, and it was a humbling experience because I've never had anyone tell me I was wrong as many times as he did on my podcast, and it's like nobody else will
All right.
do that.
Me?
No, no, because if I'm giving out wrong information, I want you to tell me, and
Well,
and also
subtlety is not my strong point. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not very subtle.
subtlety. I appreciate that. Just you're
Lead pipe to the head is my subtle technique. But go
no,
ahead.
you're like, actually, Cinnamon, no, I disagree with you. And it was kind of fun. I liked
Yeah,
it.
it's fun
Uh,
too. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that's why we are talking, right? That's why.
It's this is when you you know are somebody who dispel or distributes information, um, you better be getting it right. And if you're not, you better have a community that's willing to like correct you because
Of course.
they care about making sure that you've got it right.
Anyway,
So with
back to
the
its scores.
So what they discovered was that there were a set of adverse childhood experiences, including neglect, abuse, and household dysfunction, that were predictors of social and physical health problems. And I like to talk about like just because maybe you know, a parent was incarcerated, that doesn't automatically mean you're going to get cancer. But what we are able to see is if there is an unstable household, if there's violence, if there's neglect, if there's abuse, if there's a lack, if those things are in existence, there's usually a corresponding lack of skill development and being put in situations that you are not developmentally ready to be able to handle. And so we develop alternative maladaptive coping skills, such as, my first cigarette I had when I was 10. And so,
Right.
who would have been shocked if I smoked through high school? And then, who would have been shocked if I would have ended up with a cancer diagnosis? So, being able to see those direct and indirect correlations between what was going on in the household. And then because of the population that they used to get that initial data, there was an effort made later to create what we call the expanded or advanced ACEs that looked at more community and systemic adverse experiences that then made it even people maybe with lower scores on the ACEs. Uh, there were still other experiences that they could have had that would have
Right.
played a role
But
in what was
so to
going on with
me,
them.
what is it, the classic cases is like somebody being admitted to penitentiary, food insecurity, abuse, all of that childhood trauma really does a number on the body.
Yes,
So one of my favorite books is called The Deepest Well. I don't know if you've read that book.
I did. It's on
You
my
have it?
shelf. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing book.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
it's written by a Jamaican pediatrician. Her brother had a stroke at 25, or very, very young age. Especially, why
Wow.
would somebody who's healthy, exercising all the time, have a stroke? It just shows how early life experience really screws up the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? So, and it's very interesting to see, and it's extremely real, and it's extremely painful, and extremely problematic. So people don't quite understand that. The point, though, is when you have insecurity, if the loved one comes back, right? That's one, because not only is the child is worried, the mother is worried. Let's say it's a male, not always male, of course, but all of that takes a toll, and there is a huge need supporting the spouse and the children. I think that's a huge thing. And there's price to pay for not doing it, right? And I think our society, since we are losing a lot of those cohesive opportunities, we are paying a price for that. So you must be very busy considering what you do.
I teach a lot around not only what those adversities are, but what it looks like in our relationships and our attachment styles and how it plays out in the day to day. And part of why I do that is because I want first responders to understand that when we talk about cumulative stress, we're not talking about the day that you get sworn in, right? We're not talking about your first day on the job. We're talking all the way back potentially prenatally to the cumulative uh
Right.
trauma, cumulative exposure. And when we talk about how their strengths and some of their challenges or struggles are coming from a trained place of understanding based on what they were exposed to earlier, it helps them understand what the possibility is that they can have as an impact on their own children, which then, like, if I can't get somebody to buy in for their own well-being, I certainly can get them to buy in for their child's well-being. So if
Sure.
I explain your irritability walking in the door is a contagion for your kids to not know, and a child's brain is going to immediately think that they're to blame, right? Because mom and dad are king and queen.
Right.
And so if they become believers that they're the problem, then you're creating already a negative impact. So, how do we do that? We check ourselves before we walk in the door, and we're more mindful of how
Very
we're
useful.
coming across so we don't further that harm to our kids. So, yeah, it's
Not
all
just the kids, it's
interrelated.
the spouse also, right? So,
Both, all
yeah.
of it. Yeah,
But-
absolutely.
So I don't know
It's
if I told you,
anyone on the other side of that door.
I have to tell you my favorite story about a firefighter. So I may have told you that on your podcast, but might as well do it here as well. So I
Absolutely.
treated a firefighter from Seattle. He had severe PTSD, and his wife had secondary PTSD. So I treated both of them. So 2 years later, I get a phone call from them. We had a baby. I said, "Hey, congratulations, great." Okay. They go, "Nah, I don't think you understand. We spent 20 years trying to conceive. The day after the procedure, we got pregnant. And I'll tell you why, the mechanics of that, not sex part, but the biology of it. But the part that I find interesting, what do you think they named the baby? Not Eugene. It's a beautiful female girl. Take a guess.
Jordan.
Yes, for Michael Jordan. You're the only one who guessed
Yeah.
so.
Do you
Anyway,
want to know why I know the answer to that question?
I probably told you that last time I saw you, but
I
no.
don't know if you did or not, but
Okay.
because I am co-authoring a book with Jordan's dad. That's how I know
Michael
that her
Jordan.
name is no, no,
Oh,
no.
Jordan.
The Jordan, the baby that was
The
born,
baby. Oh,
I
yeah.
am co-authoring
That's
a book
right.
with
Okay.
Jordan's dad.
Well, that's
Yes.
hilarious. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm slow. It's like, what? Okay. That's great. That's a cute
Yes.
story, isn't it? Isn't that a great story? I love
It's a
her.
great story. Yes.
Well,
And
and then biologically, let me tell you what happens. So I wrote a chapter in the textbook about sexual dysfunction secondary to PTSD. So the block seems to reduce norepinephrine, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It brings sexual function back. And there was a study done in Italy, and they showed that stellate improves reproduction in women. So if you think about it, isn't that hilarious though? So the point is part of the job even affects that,
yeah.
right? And if people don't have a good sexual life, it affects cohesiveness and all the other problems that happens. So the point is PTSD affects your entire life. It affects everything and it makes people miserable. So that's why I'm so honored to be able to help with the stuff we do. So I think it's just it's just a tremendous opportunity to help. And I think what we as a society really need to acknowledge the contribution the first responders do to our society. Like you were talking about, you were always, chasing whatever. You didn't feel like getting out of the way, whatever.
Right.
Being a trauma guy, I was like, thank you for your service. I know what you guys are doing, and I know what happens to you because I see in the unit.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting. So, what if you had to give advice to a first responder and or their family? Give me three top advices.
Ooh, okay. So the
It's not going to be
first
easy.
thing,
It's me. It's talking.
yeah, yeah. I'm like list of questions for preparedness sake would have been nice, but the first thing I'm going to tell you is I would start as soon as possible doing the State of the Union meetings that are part of the Gottman method of couples counseling. So it's
What is
a
that?
weekly meeting that's,
What is that?
pardon?
I don't know anything about it. What is that?
Okay, so the Gottman method is a evidence-based intervention collection of for couples counseling that was created by a couple by the last name of Gottman, and they have several different activities and exercises as part of their theory, but one of them is called the State of the Union, and it is a weekly meeting that happens at a specific time on a specific day every week. It's scheduled, and we sit down with your spouse and you say, this is what was helpful that you did. This is where I'm going to need help. This is how I can feel loved, right? Based on
Well,
like,
that's
if
beautiful.
you do the dishes for me, I'm going to feel loved because what I'm telling you is I'm struggling with getting everything done this week. And so if you come in and see the dishes aren't done, it would be really helpful if you did that. And I might also say, you know what, last week when you stepped up and did bath time with the kids, even though maybe that's not something that you normally did, you have no idea how much that meant to me and how helpful that
Mhm.
was to just have that little bit of time off, right? So,
That's
and
beautiful. Love that.
it gives that space of both, here's what you did well, right? The accolades, as
Right.
well as let me tell you how you can love me or support
Better.
me best going into the next week. And then there's a section for developing your conflict resolution skills. So there's there's never a shortage of things that two people don't have the exact same mindset on. And when you practice it every week as part of your State of the Union, then when the big dogs come, then you've already developed those skills. Because most of us roll into adulthood not having great conflict management skills, especially folks that are my age or around my age, when we had more behavioralist oriented parents and there was no conflict to manage. It was do as I say. And that's the end of it. And if you don't like it, no one cares. So,
Thank you for the
how
information. Yeah, I got it.
yeah, so the idea that we need to learn how to manage conflict. All we know how to do is typically explode or go radio silent. We don't know that modulation of healthy communication. We just all don't know how to do it or we're scared of it. So
I
that would be
think
the first thing.
beautifully. I think that's beautifully said. Well, if you don't want, I think you already ahead, but I really love that. Having it planned ahead once a week and leave your feelings at the door thing. So basically, if you say, certain things which bother you, it's I've used something like that with my wife, and we've had an amazing marriage so far, only 32 years. So
Only.
I, well, I'm superstitious. For a sciencey guy, I'm very superstitious. So the deal was when we got married, or before we got married, it's like, I cannot read your mind. If something bothers you and I don't know it, if you don't tell me, I may not be able to tell. I can't read your mind. I
Mind
just
reading
can't
is
read
not a
your mind.
testament of love.
Exactly. But if you really felt for me, you would have understood that. Bullshit. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like
No,
that.
doesn't
So
work
I
like that.
think that, but saying it specifically like that, I think is very helpful. It has helped me, and hopefully it helps others. Um, well, if you don't feel like doing to others, I think you're way ahead in the one.
Well, I got one more
Okay,
that
give me one more, and we'll stop at
I
two.
think
I didn't have a
uh,
specific number. I just thought
you
I'd put
just
you on the
threw that
spot.
out.
See how you do.
So, so this is let's throw her in the water and see if she can swim.
Exactly. I
Uh,
think you're doing okay. I see your head above the water. You're way ahead.
you're fine. You're fine.
You're good.
So,
Rub some dirt in
so
it.
this second thing came out of um, watching somebody that I really cared for slowly decline into suicide. And what I learned from that was it is such a slippery slope and a short distance between the mediocrity that our first responders accept as quality of life and suicidal ideation because we've normalized not sleeping. We've
Right.
normalized isolating. We've normalized drinking alcohol. We've normalized complaining about our spouses. We've normalized not wanting to go to our kids' soccer game on Saturday morning because we worked and we don't want to get up. We've normalized all of these things because everybody else is doing them. So if I do a wellness check and I ask somebody about how they're sleeping and they're like, well, I don't, I sleep like shit, but so does everybody else in the department. It's it's like what if and what you had said this earlier, thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifice, knowing what our first responders are doing, what they're missing out on, what they're giving up, what what they are truly sacrificing. And I've said at the end of a talk, thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifice, and if you don't know what that sacrifice is, please come see me, I will be glad to tell you. um,
Good point.
because if we know what they're doing, why in the hell are we not advocating for them and they demanding to have a better quality of life during their off time where they don't want to isolate? And because we've normalized all these things like isolation, like drinking, like not wanting to spend time with their family, then nobody seems to make a big deal out of it.
Right.
But if we set that bar higher, at a bare minimum, even if the slope is slippery, it's still a farther distance where we have an opportunity to catch people before they get to that dark place. So to me, part of what the family is so important to do is they're a measuring stick of mediocrity. Like we can't let our first responders and veterans settle. We can't make it okay that and normalize the fact that they don't sleep and any of the other things that have become normal.
You're 100% right. I do appreciate that. That's amazing. What's the name of the book that's coming out, or that you're writing right now? What's the title?
Uh, well, I have two. I have two. One
Okay.
I have with Jordan's dad, and that came out of we presented at the same conference back to back, and he came after me and he said, I'm basically Cinnamon's case study. So he talked about his childhood adversity, how it impacted his not only his career but his relationships and the fallout of occupational exposure. So after this happened, I was like, what if we just marry our presentations? And it's kind of like he is the case study and I go behind and explain. And so that after like a 2 hour session of recording stories, we were both like, this is going to be a book. Um,
That's cute.
yeah.
Okay.
So I actually am going to California. I'm going into Los Angeles at the end of January to do a recording sessions and
Are you gonna do
and
like audiobook?
yeah. Well, I'm just recording his childhood stories,
Oh,
so we can, and then I'll use the transcripts to say, okay, this is, what happened is his life, and this is which of those aces it falls under, and this is what can happen as a result of that kind of exposure, whether it's housing instability or poverty or addiction in the household, whatever. So that doesn't have a title, but the working title for my book on ACEs by myself is uh, Crash Calls and Nesting Dolls, explaining
wait.
how
Say
child.
it slower. Say it slower.
Oh, yes, say it slower.
Slower. Take a breath
Crash
and say
Calls and Nesting Dolls.
nesting doll. Crash calls and nesting
And
dolls.
Nesting Dolls,
Wow.
understanding how ACEs impact the first responder.
Wow.
So I use nesting dolls as a way to explain how different versions that experience trauma in our younger selves, we don't put the semantics that we use are very confusing. We don't put things behind us. We don't get over things, right? We're not hopping. And if you look behind me, there's a wrestling belt, not my childhood. And so I think some of the language that we use does us a disservice. And what I tried to create was imagery that helps us understand that we are carrying all of those versions that experienced all of those things inside of us. And so when we have those moments where we're like, yeah, I know, but I feel this way, I'm like, the big version of that nesting doll that's sitting in front of me is the one who says I know. The unresolved trauma that one of those littler dolls experienced is the one who's saying I feel. So we have to go to the nesting doll that is feeling and resolve that to be able to make more of a cohesive version that isn't feeling like a failure because they didn't put it behind them, but rather understands that we're integrating all of those versions. And to me, that is that's the crux of my work. And as somebody who has more childhood trauma than one podcast episode could cover, I know that what I have been through in my life, both under the age of 18 and then the other results of what happened. Like I'm an alcoholic. I have got, 15 years sober almost.
Well,
That is a reality of my experience coming out of that household because that's one of the things that we can predict is that there's going to be addiction issues, right? So all of those things and trauma begets trauma. Why I'm good at my job, I feel, is because of all the shit that's happened to me.
yeah, yeah.
And it also can present other struggles in my life. So, what I try to communicate to our first responders is let's be clear, this makes you good at your job in these ways.
Right.
And you struggle in your job in these ways. So it's neither bad nor good. It just, here's where we are.
You know what? That's a beautiful way of phrasing it. When do you think it'll be out?
My goal is spring. Um,
Oh,
at
this spring?
the this spring.
You got to
With
send
that,
me a copy I can review, and I'll be
I
happy
would love that.
to.
Actually, I mean, given what I said about you were the person that told me I was wrong the most ever on my podcast, I don't know if I want to be sending you a manuscript, but I will do it in
Oh,
good faith.
where's my marker? I'm ready to. Well, I mean, I thought you had a thicker skin than that. Clearly, I was wrong.
No, here's the best part is that uh I never want to get an untouched manuscript back and somebody's like, "It was great." Because
Now,
I
they
would
never looked at
rather
it.
have somebody like be like, "On this line you said this," and that,
Well, I got to
because I
tell
want to
you,
make sure it's right getting out there.
well, whatever you think, I'd like to help if you'd like me. Plus,
I
I
would
like
love that.
learning. It's interesting. So my first book that it was called The Invisible Machine, and I had some struggles with my co-writer at that time. My wife read it, and like 50 pages into it, she goes, "Oh my God, they're just awful." I was like, "Oh God." So this
Well,
one,
I
the new book, she read through
yeah,
it, she thought it was amazing. So I'm going with that.
I and honestly, I think your book is so pretty. Like it
I
is
agree.
aesthetically pleasing.
I agree.
Um,
I think this is the best work I've done, and the lady who actually wrote it, I was just the yapper. Lauren, she did a beautiful job. She's just she's able to take sciencey concepts and real world experience and kind of mesh them with humor and a lovely way of doing it. And some topics are, they're spunky.
Touchy. Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, I don't want to keep people. I don't want people to get too bored, but I have learned
I
tremendous amount, so I really appreciate learning.
absolutely.
And if you want me to look at the book now, you don't have to. You can ignore my commentary.
No,
No
and in
problem.
fact, I'm gonna enlist you to be willing to look at Jordan's dad and I's book when
About that. He's such a
that
love
gets done.
man. That his daughter is so cute. She's so
She is
cute.
feisty.
I couldn't tell her from, but she's feisty. She's about 3 now,
Yes.
right? She should be
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So
Anyway,
I
it's a
will get to meet
pleasure.
her the first time in
Thank you so
person.
much for
You are
everything.
so welcome. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, exactly. It should be fun. Hopefully, we
Yeah.
help some families and some first responders have a better life. Can't
Yeah.
argue with that goal.
No, and that's the only goal I have right now. It's running myself out of business.
It's a good one. Have a good one.
Yes. All right. Take care. Thank
Thank
you.